Can you guess which Asian country I visited first?
China?
Keep guessing.
Hi, welcome back. It's Around the World with Joshua and Alyssa, and Alyssa has some exciting things to tell us about from some place that she's been.
Yep. So, my very first Asian country, you ready for it?
Mm-hmm.
After Guam, of course, because that's where I was living at the time that I visited this country, was the country of South Korea.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I realized that today. I hadn't been anywhere else in Asia except for Guam. So it was kind of a nice surprise. Yeah, but I think I had only flown through Hawaii.
Oh.
So I actually hadn't been anywhere else.
Wow.
So during spring break, I went with the Korean teacher and another teacher friend and some Korean students, like students who are studying Korean, to do like a foreign exchange trip for a week to a school in Busan, South Korea. And they did some like touristy stuff with us to help us kind of understand a little bit about South Korea. One of the big things that we didn't realize was the temperature. We were on Guam, so it was like 80s every single day. And the teacher told us it will be like spring. And so we were thinking, oh, spring in the US is like 70s. It snowed the day we went to this temple. We were not ready for that. Like, we got to the airport and she pulled out her winter coat out of her second luggage and put it on. And we were like, oh no, we are not ready for this. So it was a little bit chilly. I guess I thought so much of Asia was warm, but it's not necessarily warm. You just have to look at the globe and see where it is.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to a temple our first day there, and it was just really impressive to me because I had never seen Asian architecture, and it's very unique. Like all of these slanted roof kind of things and lots of symbols and designs, and it's very, very balanced. I think that was one of my favorite things about it. It was springtime, but the flowers and stuff weren't blooming yet, so that was kind of a bummer, but I bet this would have been a really, really beautiful garden, like during the summer months of the year. The temple area was huge. It had so many different layers to it in different buildings, and the higher up you got, the newer the buildings got. So like the closer down to the bottom were the beginning temples, and they just kept building and building and building kind of up the side of this mountain. So these first ones were a little bit more original, and like they've definitely been upkept and everything, but like that's a lot of painting work to do up on the top half, all those little lines and designs and everything. And they're all homes to lots and lots and lots of different gods, statues, carved images, and I'm sure they all mean something. I don't know exactly what they mean. There are a lot of dragon carvings all over Korean architecture too. And I guess you could get a dragon with a fish for quite the combination. By that one. I just thought that the shape of everything was so different from anything I had seen because I hadn't traveled anywhere else before. So I just was so amazed at the different shapes of these buildings. Something that was crazy to me is most Korean people are pretty short, but the stairs to get to these different places were huge. They were really tall, steep steps. I don't even think the picture does it justice. Like if you look at the girl almost toward the top, like it is a pretty tall step, and it's going like, feels like straight up. But I guess that's how you just keep building your temple layer upon layer upon layer. See more of all that pretty design work. In some places it was like a big courtyard area, and I think from what I understand of Korean history, they used to train their warriors in these places. So it'd be like a place for the warriors to learn different exercises and stuff, and then they would still make sure that they were following all the different religious rules and guidelines and everything. And there were short people, and a lot of the entrances were very short, so you definitely could hit your head on them. Be careful. This is something I just learned about recently. These little rocks stacked together. Actually, we just learned about it recently. I never knew what they were. I've seen them all over the world where they have different rocks, larger rocks on the bottom, and it kind of stacks towards smaller ones. And they are little Buddhas because they're thought to be in the shape of a Buddha, where it's larger at the base and then smaller up to its tiny head. So supposedly, if you make these, you're going to have a better aura about you. You're going to have better things happen to you if you have these little monuments made. And they were everywhere. People are tucking them in these little door frames and all over the edges of the roofs of the next buildings over. But everything is very decorated, ornate, very balanced. Like here's another one of those. All those doors and everything very painted similarly and all that. But it's also sad because these aren't just like ruins. These are places where people still go today to worship. And we couldn't even go into this area. You can see on the left there are shoes outside the door because there are people who are in there worshiping the different deities or whatever that they call them that are in these temples. So that was kind of sad. It's pretty to look at the architecture and the creativity that God's given people, but it's sad to think that there are some people that still worship like this today. But they had details on everything. Even their door knockers look like those dragon things. And it just was very balanced and very colorful, and it was great because it was kind of a cloudy day, so then you get to see the colors even more. So, South Korea was my very first Asian traveling experience. And it was a good one. I also learned how to use chopsticks. That was a fun adventure.
Good job.
Yeah, I'd never done that before. Okay, I also have a new story today.
Okay, sounds good.
It is... Oops. It is a story called Mustafa's Secret. And it's a story about a boy who lived in Morocco, and he was a Muslim. So he believed that Allah was the only God and that Allah had a prophet, Muhammad. And we're going to learn a little bit about Mustafa and find out what his secret is. Mustafa, you gotta come over here. Mustafa looked around. There were so many people everywhere, but somebody was calling his name. Who was it? He looked around over all the heads of people. There were so many animals and everything packed in the market. He didn't know who it could be. Mustafa! This time he turned around. It was his friend, Rashid. Come on, quick, we're gonna miss it, he said. So the two boys started off together down a bunch of little alleys, going around the different vendors of people selling things and animals, till they got to a dark hallway. Mustafa said, "Are you sure we should be doing this? I don't think my dad would want me to be going to the house of a Christian. I shouldn't be going there." "Well, don't you remember," Rashid told Mustafa, "we're going to make fun of the Christians. Your dad would be okay with that. We're not going to go be like them. We're just going to make fun of them. It'll be okay." And he knocked on the door. There weren't any windows open or anything. It was just a door. So they stood there. Mustafa was like, "Well, look, they're probably not having their meeting today. We can probably just go home." And just as he looked up, he saw someone peek out the window, pull the curtain right back. And a little bit later, a lady came to the door and opened the door. She said, "Are you here for the meeting?" And the boys smiled and nodded. "Yeah, we are." "Well, good. We're just getting ready to get started. My name is Layla, and you can come on in and join the other boys." What was a house of a Christian going to look like? Mustafa was thinking. How would it be different? I'm sure everything's going to be different than his house. Well, they walked in to a room with all these other boys, and Mustafa couldn't believe it. It looked just like his house. A long room with cushions on the sides and big pillows so that people could sit on the sides to rest and talk. Well, this looked a lot like his house. There were rugs on the floor, and even the teacher, she was dressed just like his mother would dress, just like the other Muslim ladies would dress. "Rashid, this foreigner lives just like us. This is kind of weird." She said, "It's okay. Let's see what we can do to make fun of these people." So he began to look around. He saw these kids, boys and girls, all these boys ready to learn. And Rashid came up with a plan. When they are singing their songs, anytime they say the name Jesus, let's say Muhammad instead. So anytime they're singing, we're going to switch it. And that'll be a good way to make fun of them. So that was their plan, and they were waiting for their chance. They listened as these kids sang the songs. And all of a sudden, when they saw the name Jesus, they blurted out really loudly, "Muhammad!" And some children who hadn't been singing started laughing, and the teacher had to stop and start the whole song again. She talked to the boys, "Please, if you are here to participate, please participate. If not, please be quiet and just listen." Well, the boys kind of kept doing it, but the teacher and the other children tried to ignore them. But after a little bit, Mustafa was watching the face of the teacher. That teacher really believed the things she was singing, and she was so happy. She had a big smile on her face, and her eyes seemed so joyful. She really loved singing about this Jesus and about these things that were in her books. Well, after they finished singing, the teacher said, "Okay, now we're going to have some time to pray." Mustafa thought, it's not that time to pray. They haven't had the call to prayer. They'll announce it over the speakers in like another hour. It's not a prayer time. But the children who were on the benches all bowed their heads and closed their eyes, and the teacher began to talk to God. And she talked just in like the common Arabic language. It wasn't the way that Mustafa was used to hearing people talk to Allah. He was used to hearing people use only the words from the Quran, because that's the only way that Allah would hear you. Now, that's what Muslim people believe. They believe that their God can only hear you if you use specific words from their specific book. So Mustafa was really confused. How could this be? How can this lady just talk to Allah like this, all by herself? Well, when she finished praying, she said that the children could have some time to talk with each other. And so one of the boys asked the teacher, "Teacher, who do you think is greater, Jesus or Muhammad?" And as soon as the other boys heard it, they all stopped and got really quiet, because this was a big question. She said, "Well, Muhammad was a prophet, and he was a well-known man, and many people did know about him. But Jesus is the Son of God." Mustafa jumped to his feet. Kafir, unbeliever! This is not correct. There is no son of God. Allah did not have any children, and Muhammad is his prophet. Jesus was just another prophet. He is not a son of God. And Mustafa and Rashid jumped up and they ran out the door. "You are all going to be dogs if you stay here," he yelled back to all the kids in the class. "You shouldn't stay here and learn any more from this woman." And he ran and ran and ran as fast as he could. His poor friend Rashid could barely keep up with him. Once again, running past all the people and animals in the busy market, till finally he found a nice quiet corner where he could sit down and think. But then what was coming to his mind? All those words that teacher had been talking about and the things they had been singing about. How can I get these words out of my head? This is why I should not have even gone there, Mustafa thought. Then he thought, okay, this is how I can fix it. I'll just start saying the words from the Quran, and that will help me only think about the things that will make Allah happy. So he started saying the words that he had said over and over and over for so many years since he was a little boy, because these were the things that they used for prayers. So you would memorize these words, and then when they did the special calls for, like on a big loudspeaker for everybody, then everybody would do the prayers together. So he had memorized it, and he knew them really well. So well, he could say them and be thinking about something else at the same time. So he's saying these different prayers that he knew, but at the same time he's thinking, how could you be so happy? And how did that lady have so much joy when she talked about Jesus? And how could she just talk to him just like I talk to my friends next door? How could that be? Well, why did I go to this class? And you're going to have to come back next time to find out what's going to happen next with Mustafa, his friend Rashid.
Nice.
Yeah.
Tasty snack.
Oh, good.
And a good story.
Oh, good. Phew.
Okay. Today we are going to look at a couple who we introduced to you a long time ago, and they live down in Chile, and they are Daryl and Erlyn Thompson. And if you do not remember, here is a picture of them. My home church in Iowa supports them and have for many years, and they live down there. And although they are technically retired,
they're very busy. I remember that from
yeah,
last time.
they don't retire completely from ministry, and that has become their home. And so they still want to serve, even though it may not be in the same capacity they had before. But they still are very busy, as Alyssa said. I asked them what life is like right now where they live because of COVID. And they said as of this week, they have a little more freedom. The government is authorizing those who have been vaccinated twice to have the liberty to move around from place to place. They still have to wear a mask and respect about 3 to 6 feet between each other.
Oh.
And they also have curfew at 10 o'clock.
All the time?
That's what it says.
Wow.
So I assume so. Before, they could only leave their homes twice a week, which we remember that from the Flinks in Antofagasta. Some permits were good for only an hour when you left the home. But now they can go out every single day, and a medical appointment allows them to be gone for 12 hours.
Wow.
And so he just had a cataract surgery, and so that was very nice for them to be able to... Can't be gone for just an hour for that.
I
know. The lockdowns and virus, the COVID, have impacted them a lot. They have not been able to have a regular service in their church building since the start of COVID. So over a year now. Many of them use Zoom or Google to meet online with their members to have a service. This has reduced their numbers, and not everyone uses the internet. But it has helped them get closer to some individuals. And this is a picture from before COVID, but just an idea of some of the people that they have relationships with down there. So they've gotten to know some people a little better than they would have normally in person. Right now, Erlyn is online counseling a young pastor's wife, a former Bible college student of his, and they were able to prepare one young man doing a course on water baptism. They are able to meet in one of the members' houses to have a service or a disciple, and Erlyn is also preparing a young lady for baptism. So it hasn't been all negative. There have been some good things that have come out of that. I asked them if the kids are able to go back to school, if they can play together, if they can do sports. And the government is encouraging the schools to return to classes in person.
Yay.
But the parents have held their children back.
Oh.
He said he understands that second semester is supposed to be in the classroom, so that will start in August and then go to December.
Yeah.
Not much for sports. And there are some kids who play in their backyards with neighbor friends, but that's about it. This was a VBS that they held back in February. The government opened up for no more than a couple weeks during that time. And the timing was just perfect for them to be able to have their VBS. And so that was neat. I asked how we can pray for them in the coming weeks, and he said pray that we would be able to go more often for services in the homes of people, and that soon they could be in phase 3, which would give them liberty to have their public services again in their church chapel. Right now, nothing is being done with the children, so they were able to have this VBS, but nothing else right now because they can't meet in their church building. Also, their pastor has a very sick wife, and so he has had to take care of her. But as a result, and putting that together with COVID, he hasn't been able to do as much in the church. And so that has meant that the Thompsons have to take on a little more responsibility. And this pastor is also thinking about retiring at the end of 2021. And so if that happens, then even more responsibility will fall on the Thompsons. And so pray that they would have good health to keep up and doing their work. As I mentioned earlier, he had eye cataract surgery, and that is, his eye is doing much better now, but now he has to have his hearing checked.
Oh, no.
And so just pray for health for them as they are continuing to serve very faithfully in all the ways that God has provided for them. And thankfully, COVID is letting up and the government is doing less for restrictions. But they are still busy and still going at it.
That's pretty cool. They're still using the tools that they have to help out the people in their area.
Mm-hmm.
So you can definitely be thinking and praying for them this week.
Yep, and thanking God for what they have been able to accomplish and what the positive changes that are happening now.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you come back next week to hear the next part of our story and learn some more
about South Korea.
Yeah. We'll see you next time.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.